Picture it. You're sitting there in 2016 thinking the series is over. Golden State is up 3-1 and the confetti crews are already warming up. And the winning parade routes feel penciled in. And then everything starts to slip away. One game turns to two, the tension spikes, and somehow the team with 73 wins ends up watching the trophy go to the other locker room. Today, Dean Simon pulls up to relive every twist of that collapse, the jokes, the pain, and the moments that still make Warriors fans look away from the screen just a little too fast. So let's get into it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow on each and every last one of the socials at Pearce TV, but most importantly, please enjoy this week's episode of Sports.
Simply put, what made me a Golden State Warriors fan was Steph Curry. I watched like a 2012 preseason highlight tape of him one year, and it just completely blew me away, just how different he played. And at the time, I was a little bit shorter when I was a kid, and seeing a guy of his stature do the kind of stuff that he was doing, it completely blew me away. It really felt like I was a part of the team for some reason, like the fact that it was 40 years from when they won their last one in 75 all the way to 2015. And just seeing these group of guys it was a bunch of guys who never really thought that they would make it to that mountaintop. Like Steph coming into the league, all these people saying he's too skinny, he's too injury prone. You would never think that he would overcome those kinds of things. Draymond being a second round pick, Klay being the 11th pick in the draft. And like nobody was really expecting him to be like a franchise cornerstone. So all of those things combined with Andre Iguodala taking a bench role, Steve Kerr winning as his first year as a head coach for the Warriors. It was so many things coming together that you would have never expected this team to not only win 67 games, but to take down LeBron in the finals. It was crazy. The Kevin Love stuff was legitimate because he got his arm yanked out of his socket in the first or second round when they were playing the Celtics against Kelly Olynyk. Like, he just completely ripped his shoulder out. So I'd always wondered, like, what would that series have been like if he was there from the jump? And we saw in game one of the finals, I think both of the first two games went to overtime, but that first game was really where Kyrie like stamped himself as like, okay, he's going to be a real contributor on an NBA Finals team, where he's giving Steph buckets and he's blocking his shots. And like Steph went up for a layup on the right side of the basket and Kyrie pinned it on the glass, and it was wild. So I always thought from that point on, maybe it could have been a little bit different if Kyrie was still there in Dellavedova's shoes. But you know, injuries happen in the NBA, and I'll be the first person to tell you that, you know, in 2019, the Toronto Raptors title meant just as much as anybody else's title beforehand or afterwards, because injuries do happen. So I do think about that stuff a lot, but not really in terms of the final outcome, because, you know, regardless, you can't go back and change it.
The Warriors went from team on the rise to team of the future to NBA champions. But going into 2016, they were on a journey for something far greater: NBA immortality.
I don't know if I was necessarily thinking repeat right after the title was won and then immediately as the next year started, but once I saw that in 2015-16, they started out winning 24 games in a row, maybe from that point on, I was thinking, you know what, maybe there's a semblance of a chance that they'll go and win a second straight title. A lot of it was the fact that their play style and the fact that Steve Kerr gave Steph the green light to just shoot whatever he wanted. No one was really expecting that. No one knew what was coming at them. And that's why we've seen in later years that teams have been a little bit better with devising a game plan. Like, still, you can't stop this team and what they do, but it was just completely brand new with Steph and Draymond's chemistry and Klay being the perfect guy as also one of the greatest shooters of all time, but also a much better defender that could take on Steph's more tough matchups in the backcourt. They were legitimately doing something that no one else had even conceived of doing or thought would be successful in terms of building a competitive championship winning team.
As this incredible repeat campaign was going, the Warriors faced the ultimate question as they were approaching the record. Should they go all in for the 73 wins, or should they rest their players for the playoff run ahead?
Man, I was feeling nervous because all the talk in the media at the time was like, oh man, do we want to rest the guys? Do we want to keep them fresh for the playoffs? Or does 73 really matter that much? Like one of the last games, or I think it was the second to last game of the season, it was against the Spurs in San Antonio, I'm pretty sure, and they were basically undefeated at home the entire year. And going into that, it was kind of an uphill battle, even though, again, the Warriors were on the precipice of 73 wins. That would have been 72 in San Antonio. And people were thinking Steve Kerr's crazy for still playing these guys. It does not matter that much. Maybe just stay prepared for the playoffs. I figured nothing catastrophic was going to happen, but just the fact that you're already going in to face a team of this caliber and you might not get the 73 anyway. Why risk injury? Why risk all these certain things? I was definitely seeing it from more of a pessimistic view, but looking back, I'm happy that the guys still went out there and did their thing and got 73.
And it didn't seem to affect the Warriors much in the playoffs, except for that one series we talked about last episode. So how confident was Dean going into that fated rematch against the LeBron-led Cleveland Cavaliers?
I thought there was no possible way that they could lose. There's no possible way, because I was down at my local basketball court when they were down 3-1 to the Thunder, thinking like, man, I can't believe it's really over. But there was a little part of me thinking like, well, you can't doubt this team that just rattled off 73 wins and lost 9 times in the regular season. There's always a chance. But after that happened, I was on top of the world. There was no way that you could tell me that LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love, even if they're healthy, even if they're at the complete peak of their powers, that they're stopping this version of Steph, this version of Draymond, this version of Klay. There was no way you could convince me they were going to lose.
And for about 3.75 games, it looked like that confidence was confirmed. Until the end of that 4th game, where the ever so controversial Draymond Green had a blunder that stained his legacy and Warriors history forever.
It wasn't the beginning of the Draymond antics, of course, but it was still very, very early on into, this ultimate saga of like, okay, going into every season, we're going to expect at least one crazy Draymond moment where he's going to punch somebody in the face. He's going to put somebody in a headlock. So at the time, he let kind of his ego get the best of him in the moment, because I think in his mind, he was thinking LeBron he stepped over me. Like, I can't do that. Like, why did he feel like he could just step right over me and go on his way on the court? So I feel like that, like, he just really got in his own head in that moment. And after that, I feel like people don't want to admit that really swung the momentum of the series. Like, just that moment in itself did so much to completely change the course of the series. Because I think the one thing with Draymond is that looking ahead, of course, you can't really know that this is going to happen after game 5 or game 6. But in the game 7, where he nearly dropped a 32-point triple-double, and he probably would have won finals MVP if that moment had come to pass and Kyrie maybe doesn't hit that shot and whatever. If Draymond were to have put on a similar performance in game 6, maybe he still is in that same mind frame where he's thinking I have to score a little bit more, and he still gives you maybe 28 and 6. Maybe that's the series right there. And maybe he feels like, man, we're really knocking on the door right now in game 6, and we could do it in their building just like we did last year. I'm thinking that probably would have put some kind of spark in him. Maybe he would have figured he needs to take on more of that role. So in my eyes, it could have been wildly different if he was present. But when it comes to guarding those two guys, they were just in a complete other zone. There was no way to possibly stop those guys to both score 41 in that game uber efficiently. They were just in a completely different world of their own. So I'm really a firm believer that you couldn't do anything to stop them in that moment, because they had already had that moment after, I think it was game 5, saying like, they're effed up in the head, like they're like mentally messed up. So like, we're going to just go after him now. There was really no turning back at that point. Once they gained all that momentum and they put on a performance like that, there was no stopping them.
So now that the series is tied up and the Cavs duo firmly has flames shooting out their rear ends, where has that pre-game confidence gone now?
Oh man, game 7 was, you had a feeling by the time the game tipped off. I mean, personally, I always hold out hope for my team, but there's always that kind of tinge in the back of my head thinking like, man, this is going to go really bad. Like, that they just dropped the last 2 games and all this stuff is happening with Draymond and all these little things are starting to build up so that it makes this story for the Cavs that much more impressive. All these little things are going to come into it at the end, and this game is probably going to end in some heartbreaking fashion. And it's going to be a legendary moment. And really what I was thinking about going into game 7 was the media's reaction if the Warriors were to lose. I was thinking about the Instagram posts or Twitter posts I would see saying, oh my God, Cleveland just came back down 3-1. So that was all in my head going into the game. So I wasn't as confident at the start. See, one thing about that game, even though I have kind of refused to like go back and watch replays of it, or at least like the full game, just knowing what happens at the end, but that was legitimately an amazing game. But down the stretch of the fourth quarter, when Steph throws like the infamous behind the back pass out of bounds, and then everybody after the game was like making the memes of it, like replacing the ball with the championship trophy and he's throwing it away. That was kind of the real signal to me that it's over. Like I didn't want to like come out and fully say that I had lost all hope by that point, but that was again just another one of those little things where it's like the details in the series of where the momentum shifted when Steph threw that behind the back pass out of bounds. It was seen as like this insanely careless moment in the biggest, like the height of Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and then that just served as kind of the staple moment where it's like, okay, the Warriors just blew this thing and their head's not in it and they lost their composure. So especially after that happened, I really felt that they were against the ropes and it's not looking good.
Step one of putting the Warriors over the ropes was what Cleveland fans simply refer to as the block.
I couldn't believe that it had happened. It looked fake to me. Like when I was watching it live, it didn't, like, I completely thought, where did he come from? Like, how did he possibly make up that much ground in that amount of time to get there? And I wasn't even really paying attention to him in the play, because once he got by J.R. Smith, I thought, whatever, like that's two. But he comes flying in, and I really, like, at a time where AI wasn't very prevalent, I thought that was an AI creation. That moment, it was just like, maybe I was shot in the chest with like a BB gun at that time. And then later on, they brought out the bigger guns.
And speaking of bigger guns, Kyrie Irving, is your time to shine for the shot.
Honestly, looking back at it, I really am surprised that he stepped back for a three. I thought he definitely could have taken him off the dribble, maybe got into the mid-range and then hit some kind of move to shake him off and like get a clean mid-range shot. But the fact that he was hunting Steph like on a switch from the beginning, he was trying to get Klay off him. I knew things were going downhill. And that sidestep, that was probably the most perfect move he could have hit at that time to kind of freeze Steph and then step back for a three. Because Steph barely got any lift on his contest. Like you'll see in the pictures, Kyrie looks like he's 5 feet above him when he's shooting. In that moment, when the ball hits the back of the rim and drops, that was like I got my chest blown out by a cannonball. And my jaw dropped to the floor, and several seconds after, I was standing there in stunned silence, and I had no idea how to. I wasn't the type to throw a fit or get angry at those kinds of things. It was just I was in complete disbelief, and that remained after the close of the game as well. But specifically for that shot, I remember not feeling overly angry. It was just like I can't believe what I'm watching right now. Not even from a Warriors fan perspective, but just a basketball fan perspective, thinking how unbelievable is this story, and my team is going to be on the receiving end of this. I was staying off social media definitely for the first week and a half of the off season, and that was maybe the first off season after the year concluded that I could not possibly like look at NBA basketball content. Like maybe, if a high school montage comes out, I'm tuning into that, but I just cannot be reminded of this league, of this team. So I definitely stayed off social media for a while in general, because everything I followed was just like ESPN, whatever, saying like, I can't believe this happened. Like, this is crazy. LeBron's the GOAT. Like what's going on? Is somebody gonna like leave the Warriors? Is Steve Kerr done? So I was completely tuned out of basketball media for at least a solid 2 weeks after the year concluded. I could not get myself to look at anything like big sports media related, like ESPN or whatever. It was impossible.
Well, Dean didn't have to stay away from NBA news for too long because soon the basketball gods chose favorites and bestowed upon him an easy money sniper to fight the Cavs' big guns.
In the most cheesy way possible. It felt like I was reborn. It felt like no wrong could have been done. But even heading into that year, that first season with KD, as crazy as it sounds, after witnessing what I did in Game 7, I wasn't going to be the first one to say that the championship is sealed, because I saw that anything can happen. A 73-win team can blow a 3-1 lead in the finals and nearly, be out in the conference finals in 5 if they didn't come back. So I wasn't ready to just put the stamp on it like we're 2017 champs. They had to prove something to me first, and of course they did, but I wasn't ready to immediately crown them champs.
Thank you to Dean for coming on the show. Thank you to the Cavaliers for the greatest comeback in finals history. And thank you to you specifically, for watching this far into the video. Leave a comment so I know to thank you. After such an amazing ending, I had to ask, Dean, how do you choose to remember the 2015 to 2016 Warriors season? Post-credit scene, go.
The start of the regular season, the 24-0 start, of course. There were so many games along the way. Like, I think the game before that streak was snapped by the Bucks in Milwaukee, they were playing the Celtics, and I think it went to overtime. Steph hit a couple crazy shots to keep the streak going. And from that point, like, it felt like there was no possible way they could be stopped. But the 24-0 stopped in Milwaukee. And as a little kid, like, I was crying when I saw on the record they were 24-1, and just watching that game unfold. So, like, just to show you that, like, there was no struggle in my life to that point. But moving on to the postseason, it was really, really fun. And then after the conference finals, I was on top of the world. After Game 4 of the NBA Finals, I was on top of the world. Overall, I think it was a fun season with a lot of historic hoops, and overall, don't want to say that I'm like thankful for the ending of it, but the fact that, again, like, it gave guys like Steph, Draymond, Klay another kind of hurdle to leap over in their careers for people to come to respect them as all-time greats.